Yeah, absolutely. And we got a few questions here, so let me just throw one over to you. I'm curious to know how much data does someone need? In other words, can you get rolling with just some spreadsheets that you have of customer data from email marketing programs, or how many different sources of data? How much data do you need to be able to get a decent signal?
Yeah, that's a great question. A really awesome one. So you don't need that much. The way we built Spark is to be able to handle both small data and big data. My perspective on it is I used to work in analytics when nobody talked about big data, right? It was just data. So big data, small data, they're cool buzzwords. But when we started thinking about Spark, we realized that not everybody is going to be the Amazons and the Googles and the Ubers of the world. They're going to have smaller data. So, the models we've created work on smaller data. As a matter of fact, for school, in Texas, we took 189 students, pretty wide data of their pre-admissions and their grades and the courses they took, and we're able to predict for new students the likelihood of them to succeed at the school with a predictive capability that exceeded the pharmacy college adaptive test. Right, our models were much more accurate than the standardized tests that they used. So, and that was only on a small set of data. At the end of the day, Squark is so easy to use that we encourage people to give it a try. And, it's not a heavy lift for us to prove it out. So get in touch if you're interested in learning more. But it certainly works on smaller data. And I think smaller data AI, outside of software, is definitely part of the future as well.
Yeah, and you talked about the Martech 7000, and there are so many different technologies out there. Roughly, how many of those have you seen in customer engagements? Are there any that really jump to the top? Obviously, Marketo, HubSpot, things of that nature. But what can you say about the variety and how that affects designing a solution that'll generate some business value?
That's a good question. So when we started the business, we wanted to make it easy to connect data. So we fundamentally take CSV, right? UTF-8 encoded CSV. So however we connect, that's fundamentally the data source. I mean, there's other ways we can pass data, Parquet formats to Squark and stuff like that. But fundamentally, when we designed it, that's where we started. So, connecting the data becomes not much of a challenge for us. And so, you see the ecosystem that we're building out, and that's driven by our awareness of what's happening in the industry as well as customer demand. We try to be customer centric. When we started doing this, we picked a channel partner. We picked Domo. Since then, we've developed with Domo and obviously do a bit more than that. But we wanted to be able to put a capability on top of solutions that didn't have it and don't have it. So, the reason we connect to the systems we connect to now is because despite any marketing, we've found them not to have this capability, and it's differentiated. The market changes rapidly, and we continue to change rapidly with it. So writing connectors to new sources is really just a small services lift for us.
Yeah, that's interesting. And then again, there are so many facets, there are so many variables. You talked a little bit about this, knowing which feature, which column is going to have covariance to your desired goal. Let's take marketing qualified leads, which one of those are going to convert. Are you able to track over time which of those facets and which data sets tend to be the most predictive? And if so, how does that work?
One of the things that we're very sensitive to is customer privacy and security. And so we take people's data, very seriously. It's, encrypted. We conform to lots of security requirements. And so we're not aggregating behind the scenes people's data and trying to, build out a better and predictive data store by aggregating things together. So, the data that gets uploaded to Squark doesn't get seen or used in any other way by us other than how at all we can't see it other than by the named user has the license. And it's very easy to delete the data in your account and conform were we to run on HIPAA cloud in a private environment or a GDPR regulated environment, Squark to participate in those even CCPA compliance initiatives. So knowing that we don't do any fishy, sketchy aggregation, right, of this data in the back end, that we just keep it pure for the customer, we do have the ability to checkpoint models. We do have the ability to reuse, the data you upload that's in your instance. So say you're uploading, hundreds of millions of rows and, a bunch of columns, and it's done in Bradstreet data. You don't want to upload it, but you want to predict on it multiple times. We allow you to, kind of manipulate it within the environment. The learning process, right, can start fresh every time, and that scoring process can too as your data changes. So it's nimble and flexible in that way. I hope that answered the question well.
Yeah, no, that's good. So one of the attendees is asking, how long have you guys been around, and how long did it take you to build what you have today?
We've been around for almost 4 years. So it took a long time, relatively, because things changed over that time in terms of just the algorithms, the compute availability, the people we worked with. We screwed it up for a while. We just started with unsupervised. We started with binary classification. We pushed this 1.0, if you will, out in like early Q2 last year. And so we've been, pushing it that way and we're still a startup, right? And it's taken some time for people to understand what we're doing. When we started up, what's machine learning? Then it's, the next year, our data's not ready. Then the next year, well, maybe our data's ready, but what are the use cases? So this year, it's, people are starting to understand the value, and we're starting to see much more of an uptick in interest. And it's about putting it in the context of use cases. And for us, it's a lot about making it simpler for people to understand and verticalizing it into these use cases to get that sort of gravity and growth.
Yeah, and I think one of the keys, and I'm guessing you'll agree with me here, is to really roll up your sleeves and get started using some of this stuff, because it's a process to understand what kind of insights you're going to get as you work with the data. And that's going to be an ongoing iterative process no matter what, right? You don't find the perfect model right out of the gate. You have to take time working with the data. And you have to, one of the funner comments I've heard is you have to kind of kick the system down again. I think that's what you were talking about with your confusion matrix, right? Can you just comment on that real quick?
Yeah, it's all about trying this stuff out. The idea of having to go and ask somebody to code models and change the parameterization and rerun and test over time, definitely makes sense in certain use cases. And in other use cases, it doesn't make sense, right? The time to make the decision doesn't support the time to model and predict it. The available resources can't deliver. They're working on other things. So there's this, whole set of use cases that, you can target automated machine learning in a platform like Squark at that provide, instant value, that provide the ability to make decisions, to action quicker at a lower cost, with less overhead. And so, we really try to enable that, right? And again, we got business users on the platform who've never seen or understood an algorithm before, building stuff that they have shown us the financial results that work, all the way to big company data science teams, as you probably saw on our customer list, using this to be more agile. What features does it generate? What algorithms does it use? How do the models compare to what we're doing? Maybe they don't take Squark to production. Maybe it informs what they do in their labs to bring things to life. Or maybe they do take it to production. I mean, the cool thing is that a capability like this exists. It's no code, it's low cost, it's easy to use. And so to me, and my co-founder, we built this because as analytics people, this is what we wanted to use, right? So when we started building it, to answer the gentleman's question a long time ago, it was pure innovation. It was just, hey, what hasn't worked for us in our careers? What's been hard to manage? What's been hard to, get done? And prediction was always a challenge. I remember I used to work at Monster Worldwide, managed the SaaS team for some time, and I used to call it the software. I used to call it my pain in the SaaS, right? Because it was hard and expensive. So, we wanted to solve for, challenges that we had, and we wanted to build something that we could use to get the results that we wanted. So now it's here. To me, it's almost a no-brainer. Why not use it?
That's fantastic stuff. Well, folks, we burned through an hour here. Yes, we do archive all these webinars for later viewing. The archive is usually available in about an hour. So if you have a colleague who wants to check this out, come back in about an hour, and you should be able to use that same link to check it out. And we'll follow up with you with slides and other details about this. And we'd love to know what you want to know. So send me an email, info@insightanalysis.com. We'd like to hear your thoughts about all this. And like Judah says, the key is to get started and to use this stuff. We're at a whole new era beginning right now in terms of these technologies, and it's a very, very exciting space. And the bottom line is that if you're not using these kinds of technologies, you're going to slowly fall behind the competition because it's just everywhere and it's happening all the time, and it's only going to get more intense. And with that, we're going to bid you farewell. Thank you, Judah, for your time and attention today. Thanks to all of our attendees. We'll talk to you next time, folks. Take care.